Stokes book. It sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher being fed through a wood chipper.
God damn it, now I'm sad I missed what it sounded like on my end.
It was bad.
In my head, that sounds... Oh my god, we broke Scott.
Yeah. Scott's gone.
Oh my god, I don't know why I find that so funny.
Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of Mythos Busters, where today we're going to bring you to your knees. Joining me tonight, or this morning, as it were, is the owner of that well-earned groan, Nick.
Hello.
Hi, Nick.
Hi.
How are you?
Now I'm pretty good.
Excellent. Joining as well is Scott. Hi, Scott.
Hello, good morning. You have a lot more energy than I think Nick and I do. But
well, I'm halfway through my coffee, so we'll see how it goes. And unfortunately, missing this morning is Ian. He had some unexpected Shoggoth-related complications, so he's sorting those out, and we'll catch him on the next one. So, today, guys, we've got a fun episode. We've got a big announcement from FFG, which we're going to talk about, some huge news. We got our regular intros and whatnot, and today's discussion topic, we're going to go stat by stat on the Investigator card and talk about how a different stat, whether it's high or low, will affect the way you play your Investigator, and just kind of things you need to think about. And then, of course, we'll round it out with a little bit of technical time. So, guys, are you ready for this?
Yes.
you're musical this morning.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Oh.
So, guys, what you been playing lately? Any recent decks to talk about? Any recent playthroughs? Anything notable?
Before you guys start talking about your specific min build, I'll just say that I haven't had the chance to play a whole lot of Arkham. The little bit I have played has just been my lead investigator build of Roland. That is a yellow heavy build of Roland going through Carcosa. And that's really about it. Yeah.
How's that working out? Because
I
know Carcosa and what it demands.
Mm-hmm.
And what Roland... Yeah.
He only has one mental trauma so far, and
wow.
I'm running at least one copy of each of the Desperate skills, 2 copies of the Intellect one, and 2 copies of the Will one, just because it's Carcosa. And it's been going great. I haven't succeeded on every scenario, but and a couple of them it was like my first time playing it, like with, I think it's Phantom of Truth is the one with the organist. Like that one, I just jumped into it and just played it once, and I was like, "Oh, that didn't turn out exactly like I'd hoped." But at the same time, it wasn't debilitating to the campaign, so it worked out. But yeah, I really like Yellow Heavy Roland because just a couple of blue cards is really all he needs to supplement like the combat part of it. And then if you get those intellect icons and you get the tools that Seeker provides, he can really.
And then it's movement, draw, and clue gathering from here to the top.
Oh, yeah, and the whole, art student... I know we've talked about it a billion times, but art student plus calling in favors is amazing. Dr. Malison and Inquiring Mind is amazing. So it's nice to have those little, combo pieces that you can pair up and really get work done.
So did Yellow Roland end up with the yellow cloak?
No, I got the result that I had would be the Onyx Clasp, and I didn't take it, and I kind of wish I had, just because of it would have made doing solo, not echoes. What's the
Oath?
Oath, yes, solo Unspeakable Oath, a little bit easier, just a little bit. But no, I didn't take anything from echoes.
So Roland made it through Oath, though.
Mm-hmm. Oh, trust me, I had to do it multiple times. And that's one thing that I've been criticized for, is the fact that after my face check, I tend to reset and go again if I don't get the resolution I like. But you know what? It's my game. Fuck off. And I,
Yep.
yeah. And so like my Jenny,
Oddly defensive. Wow.
I've had a few people like, well, on Facebook, not on our Discord, but be like, well, that's not how you're supposed to play the game, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna play it how I want. Because
if you want to come for my medals, you come
right,
for them.
yeah. So Jenny, like, she ended at Unspeakable Oath, and once I saw that was an option, like, she was my face check campaign, so I stopped with her, and I'm like, I don't need to redo it with her. But then when I did it with Roland, because I had seen this stuff already, I'm like, all right, I want to go for the best result I can, and so I think I played Unspeakable Oath 5 or 6 times. But since then, because now he is my face check campaign for everything after Oath, I'm keep playing it straight. So that's kind of how I do it, is once I get through a scenario once, regardless of how it turned out, after that it's free reign.
Seems valid.
Yeah.
I generally don't replay a scenario unless I get just absolutely hosed by dumb luck.
Right.
But there are those playthroughs where, I guess I'm just going to draw all enemies, because apparently there are no treacheries in this encounter deck.
I have a campaign going on right now with Spoon from our Discord and BD Flory, and we're playing with ultimatums. I think we're playing hard with the ultimatum of finality. So whenever if your investigator goes insane or it gets knocked out, they're dead.
Oh,
you make a new deck.
Yeah, you don't take trauma, you get death.
Yeah, and it's not going well. We're gonna run out of investigators because we're going through Carcosa. But yeah, it'll be fun.
So I know we talked about it for Oath specifically last time, but as you guys do that, have you found that the resolutions are worded such that if you choose new investigators, the new investigator gets the experience that you got in the scenario that the prior investigator died in? Or is that just specific to Oath?
That's specific to Oath, and
okay.
There's one other scenario. I think it's in the core set. I think it's the Devourer Below. If your investigators die, but they got R1, I don't know. There's something weird in the core set. Only if you're going to continue campaigns or something. But yeah,
right on.
Yeah. So if our guys die, they die, and you make new level 0 decks.
Well, and that makes sense that they do that for Oath, because it's like that's halfway through the campaign, and suddenly we have a campaign ender. So you got to throw a little bone, even if it's a tiny little like finger bone. You gotta throw it.
Yeah.
Just a partial phalange. Mm-hmm. Do we think that was intentional on Matt's part?
I think so. Because it's mid-campaign, I think it is, yeah.
Fair enough. Well, Scott, I think you and I probably need to bring up our our co-op deck build that we did last week.
Yeah, I was... well, you had the idea on the last podcast, goodness, of a armchair min or like a Professor X min.
Cerebro min.
Yes, where she just kind of like sits there and just hands out skill cards. Like you dig hard for analytical mind. And then I was going to an invocation event this week, and I was like, oh man, this will be the perfect time to try it out. So called up Sean, and we built this incredible deck that does work. So
it's pretty fun. So we built the standalone version of it. I think we ended up with 29 experience.
Yeah, 29, and you could go to 39 if you wanted
the leveled up No Stone Unturned.
Yeah.
No Stone Unturned.
Yeah. So it is quite a heavy XP deck for standalone, but I did the 29% or the 29%. 29 experience one in standalone. And it worked really well.
Yeah, and I took the basic build, and then I kind of backed it up to level 0 for a campaign to kind of build into, and I paired it with Akachi, and that campaign's been pretty fun. That's actually the campaign that was aforementioned, where occasionally not both of those investigators are particularly quick at dealing with enemies, so I remember what one it was. I think it was Oath, where as soon as the lunatics got shuffled into the deck, it's like the next 3 turns, that's all min pulled. And even even with Akachi, with a Shriveling, and a couple Astral Travels in hand, specifically for that kind of bailout purpose, like, it just wasn't enough, and that campaign technically ended, but we alternate universed it, so I could continue to build into this Armchair Min. But even with 2 players, like, you built it for 4 players, and with Min being able to chuck a skill kind of for every test, basically.
Yeah.
That's got to be a lot of value. But even for 2 players, that deck does all right. I think the one thing that I'm finding is that Barricade is just not working like I thought it would. Even though Min kind of stays put, she still has to move more often than Barricade kind of lets you.
Which is not at all.
Barricade actually worked for us.
Okay, so maybe it's different for 4 players.
But it was 4 player, right? And I mean, I holded myself off into one of the non-Bayou locations, like the one that had a victory point that we cleared off, so the Ruru wouldn't come back. And then I barricaded just so any of those little hunter enemies couldn't get at me. And then with the double disc of Ibzamna, I was fine. Like, I sat in that one position for 10, 15 turns.
Yeah. With double disc and double barricade, that deck's really interesting because it's like, oh no, you can't get in unless you're elite, and oh no, you can't spawn here unless you're elite.
Yeah.
So then when those elite bastards come out, it's kind of heartbreaking. But what's the big one in Oath? She pulled Beast of Aldebaran.
Oh.
Showed up in Daniel's cell.
The Victory 2 enemy that floats around in there.
Yeah, whichever one has like 7 hit points. Like, even Akachi was like, nope, that one's staying on the board. Because it doesn't hunt.
Right.
Luckily, it doesn't hunt, so I just had to evade it and get
That's
out.
one that I love the art for so much that I keep looking at it going like, I kind of wish it would hit table, and then like I get one of the littler monsters that like just a regular Byakuya comes out, and I'm like, nope, I don't want anything worse than this. Like, thank you.
Yeah, the art on that is amazing. I would totally play a playmat with that art.
So I threw the link in chat. It's just basically the deck list that I used, the 29 XP. I'm going to be working on a little write-up for it, I think. And, yeah. Eureka. That's a really good card.
Oh, God, Eureka. Oh, I mean, Eureka in Min basically is kind of Unexpected Courage with dig ability.
It's Unexpected Courage with a Old Book of Lore ability slapped on. Yeah.
God, that's a good card. Mm-hmm. I'll be interested to see if we ever get a leveled up version of that.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Dig 10 cards down.
Well, what about just additional, like, just add a... How much experience would you pay for the same thing, just with a wild icon added to it? 1?
One, probably.
I mean, basically turn it into kind of Unexpected Courage? Yeah, I'd pay 1 for that. If everything else stayed the same. Also, when did Jonah Ray get so angry? I don't know. Like... I mean, he doesn't look like a guy who just found out.
I was going to say, that's not the face you make when you shout Eureka. You're usually happy. I would think. I don't necessarily
That's
shout.
the face I make when we need a healer and that bastard picks Hanzo. Alright, I'm done with Overwatch references for the show.
You lost me. What?
So, Scott, you're going to put that out on ArkhamDB under our Mythos Busters account?
Yeah, I just
instead of being an individual glory hog like these other assholes.
Maybe I'll do both.
Someone commented on. So someone was listening to our prior episodes and was listening to our other deck builds. 2 of 3 are Agnes decks.
Yeah.
So someone commented like, oh, of course the account that's controlled by Sean has mostly Agnes builds on it. I'm like, well, if someone else would post under our account.
I don't even post decks under my account. Like, so.
Yeah.
I have published one successful deck, and that was the seriously WTF Jenny.
the troll Jenny.
It's a good legacy to leave behind.
Yeah, I was like, well, I've peaked.
I really, like, since we're talking about min and deck building, I still, like, we had that brief little conversation a couple episodes ago where I was like, I wonder if you could build an investigator that doesn't use assets. And I'm really looking at min thinking, like, I want to try that. Maybe not quite yet, but eventually get to a point where I build a min deck that has assets in it, but she doesn't use, like, she just pitches them for skill icons. Like, I think that would be, like, a lot of fun. It would be an interesting way to approach it. Probably be terrible, but
So I know that thought pivoted from the existence of straitjacket. So are you talking straight up no assets or no hand slots?
It actually, well, we got there from straitjacket, but what I was really thinking of, and I brought it up in that previous episode, but was the character in Fight Club, who you can build a deck that doesn't use any cards that stay on the board. They're all events, and they're all temporary cards. Mm-hmm. And so that's essentially what I'm going for, is something that looks at a portion of the game that seems like a given, like you need, and just says, nope, I can exist without that. And again, it's probably going to be terrible because I don't think our card pool is strong enough to the point to facilitate that, but I think it would be a fun build to explore.
I look forward to your report next episode.
I don't know if it'll be before next episode. I guess we'll see when we get some more like good Seeker and Survivor event stuff, like super strong. Well, we would really do. Maybe, you know what? Yeah, all right, you got me. I will build it for next episode.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'm just gonna wait till we get good, good Seeker cards. Oh, you mean not
Still
every
waiting.
single card that's come out since the core set?
Still waiting.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, Barricade would work because that is technically an event. That's not an asset.
It's true.
Which
Also,
always
hiding
throws me
spot.
off. Hiding spot too. Yeah.
Yep.
And lure. But I probably wouldn't use lure.
We did not put lure in
Yeah,
for
probably
ours,
smart.
but double barricade, I think, is the cheekiest part of the deck. But like, barricade sucks. Let's put 2 in.
Yep.
Yeah. And it's nice to see that it's at least getting some use because we panned that card pretty early on in this show.
Well, I don't think you could work around it earlier on. Like
That's
now,
very true. Yeah.
Specifically in Min, you can with analytical mind.
And within the know too. Like there's
Yeah.
multiple things that let you pull from elsewhere. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if Barricade just stayed put until every investigator left that location and someone could kind of hold down the fort. I mean, that would be one thing.
So
But the fact that anytime anyone leaves that location, it goes away, that it's tough.
So how often, when you guys are playing with Barricade, like if you've played with it a couple times now, how often is it that multiple investigators are holding up in a single location with it? Or is it just Min just pops it in there to avoid, big interruptions? Because I guess I would see it more as like you don't wait for everybody to be together. Min just throws it down and uses it until she has to leave.
That's what I did, where
Yeah, pretty much.
basically I found a location once like a couple turns into the game. Okay, everyone's good. All right, I'm going to my hidey hole. And then just barricade off. Yeah.
Cool. Welcome to Barricade Cast.
The Barricast. Yeah, so then I think the last thing that I wanted to mention, just briefly, because I know we haven't gone full spoiler on Phantom of Truth yet, but I actually have on my table right now, in progress, a playthrough of Phantom of Truth that I'm doing with my sister and her boyfriend, where I'm playing Ashcan, who is running David Renfield.
Oh, jeez.
And when
What?
you are running David Renfield I'll send you this build. This deck is
crazy.
so fun and so good. But anyway, when you're running David Renfield and you have more conviction than doubt in Phantom of Truth, and you manage to get the clues to advance instead of let the organist chase you, David Renfield's insane. Because you can make the agendas last as long as you want and just continue to pull in bank with David Renfield, because if you've got more conviction than doubt, any doom on cards that aren't the agenda subtract from the threshold.
So wait, in that scenario, don't we want the agenda to advance? Like, isn't that the time? Oh no, I'm thinking it. Never mind. I'm thinking of
Yeah, if you're being chased,
Yes.
you want the knights to go as quickly as possible because you just have to survive
Yep.
3 nights. If you're chasing the organist, you
can-
have 3 nights to get clues on him.
see, I haven't
just
tried
making
the other way
nights
around.
last as long as possible is like, all right, well, we can just kind of meander around, get all these VP, whatever. He's off in the corner. He just like the only problem with it is though, is the damn skull token in the bag because the skull is -1 for each doom in play.
Yeah. Oof.
Up to a max of -5, so it's still surmountable. But
But you've got 3 of them in the
basically,
bag.
Yes, exactly. So basically, if you're going too heavy on this for too long, which we did, it's basically like 3 auto fails in the bag, unless everyone's ready to just devote a ton of resources to getting really high on tests.
Ooh.
So anyway, pro tip: David Renfield, He makes Phantom of Truth real interesting.
Yeah, I never would have thought of putting him in Ashcan. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, I have David Renfield on board right now, along with Peter Sylvester too. So my Ashcan is sitting at 6 willpower.
Wow.
It's a fun. It's a real fun deck.
Wow.
This last weekend, I seriously couldn't stop doing the stupid Owen Wilson wow. Like, there were 3 of us and we just kept doing it, and I couldn't stop. Anyway.
Oh, whenever I hear that, I think of the one where someone took the Phantom Menace with the battle face and replaced the lightsaber sounds with wow.
Every time a lightsaber clashes, wow.
My son's been really into Cars 3, and he says it like 8 times in that movie, and I just crack up every time. And Roland's just like, what? Like, what's going on?
All right, so then I think that moves us on to... Where the fuck were we?
Hotline topic of the week.
Yes, let's talk about that real quick. So, I know I mentioned this last episode, but I kind of did it at the end of the episode. I honestly don't know how many people make it through hour 2 of most of our episodes. I wanted to mention it kind of a little sooner in the episode this time. But we're doing a new thing with our hotline where we're going to ask a question, and hopefully we can get a bunch of people to call in with their own answers to it, and we can kind of string those together at the end of the episode and have our own discussion as well. So we're going to roll over the same topic that we did from last week. So we want to know, who do you think, which investigator has the coolest deck building rules? Not necessarily the strongest, but who has the coolest deck building rules? So I would ask that you please call in with your answer to the Mythos Busters hotline. That's 203-493-MYTH, 203-493-6984. And hopefully we'll get enough answers next episode where we can have a little community roundup on that question. Because I have thoughts, and I'm excited to talk about that a little bit on our side as well.
I was ready to jump into it, but I figured, we probably want to save that discussion.
Yes. So, then let's move it on into news. Scott, I know you're taking up Ian's mantle. What do we got?
I am. So there was a small announcement from FFG that the game is dying. Oh, sorry. The new cycle was announced. The Forgotten Age. So sounds like we're going to southern Mexico and trotting through the jungle.
Welcome to the jungle.
Oh, that's why you did that earlier.
Yeah, that's. I realized that. Oh God, no one.
I was sitting there like, why is he suddenly doing Guns N' Roses? I don't get it.
Huge card spoily stuff in this. Kind of shows a new. Mechanic. It's going to be in the game exploring, where we're going to have like an encounter deck and an explore deck, and so you'll have to take an action and actually try and find your way through the jungle, which I think is super awesome. We also got a new investigator spoiled. So, Nick, would you like to read Ursula Downs?
I would love to. Ursula Downs is the Seeker investigator in the Forgotten Age cycle. She has the Explorer subtitle, the Wayfarer trait. Her stats are 3 will, 4 intellect, 1 combat, and 4 agility. And her text reads, reaction, after you move to a location, take and investigate action, limit once per round. And her Elder Sign effect is +1. After this test ends, you may move to a connecting location. She has 7 health and 7 sanity. Discovery is easy. Understanding is the hard part.
Well, I would understand that this is a really good investigator.
I love this.
This is...
I'm a big fan of not Lara Croft.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally not Lara Croft.
I suppose Lara would be a little bit more fighty.
She'd have probably Roland's ability, I think, or something similar.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoy whenever a stat line has a single, like, her combat is 1. It's like, okay, they didn't give it the little 2, so it's like, oh, she can kind of fight. This is like, no, she just doesn't do this. And so you get more value out of the other stats.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like, okay, so now I don't play with characters who have a 1 in a stat very often. It scares me away from them, I'm going to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
Do we only have the 1 right now? Just Wendy?
Daisy has a 1 combat, doesn't she?
No.
Oh, and does Norman have a 1 agility?
Norman has a 1 agility. Yep, he has a 1 agility 2 combat. I think Daisy does, but I guess I can't remember. But anyway.
No, Daisy does not. I know she doesn't.
Yeah.
Have
Okay.
She doesn't have a 1.
She's like 3-5-2-2.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so with someone with a 1, especially in combat like this, we'll get to that discussion later, but that's a pretty central part of the game for most scenarios. Do you still include your combat buff, like the secret combat cards, or do you literally just focus on evasion and the strengths of secret movement and card draw and all that?
Probably. Well, see, the thing is, she has a 4 agility as well, so she can evade.
Yeah.
Like something in Wendy, I usually carry a fire axe just to deal with like rats or an acolyte. But
This is my rat bashing axe.
exactly, like with Ursula, I don't think I'd throw in a weapon at all. I think you still have I've got a plan and
Sure.
mind over matter.
Okay.
But you're not dealing with the big guys. When the big enemies come out, you look over at your friend who's playing Mark and say, "Okay, come do your job," right?
Yeah. Okay.
And we haven't seen spoiled the other side of her card.
No, we don't know her deck building stuff.
Given the setting, I suspicion that there's going to be a bigger emphasis placed on agility. So if we're going through treacherous terrain and presumably going into temples and ruins and dealing with crumbling ruins and booby traps, like I just imagine this is going to be the agility cycle.
Yes, I
Yeah.
would agree.
So
Sean, you want to read her signature asset?
ooh, can do.
What was that?
That was just me being excited for Jake Williams.
Okay.
Who is a 3-cost signature ally. He's got an intellect and wild pips, ally and wayfarer traits, Ursula Downs deck only. The first move or investigate action you perform each turn does not provoke attacks of opportunity. And reaction, after you reveal a location or put a new location into play, exhaust Jake, draw a card. He takes up at the ally slot and has 3 health and 2 sanity. He is a nice little signature ally.
Yes.
He does a lot of things.
Yes.
Draws you cards, allows you to investigate. Yeah.
Nice
Good stats.
soak for health, yeah. I'm a fan. I am pro Jake. And also, that's oh hey look, it's Magali. It's a Magali piece. I wonder if this existed prior to this expansion actually.
Oh, she also did
developed.
Ursula.
That I'm fairly certain is older art,
Oh,
but
yeah.
yes, still very good art.
I think Mowgli's...
The reason Oh, sorry.
I was going to say, I think Mowgli still does FFG stuff, just not as often.
Sure, and that's why I brought that
Yeah.
up. That makes sense.
Was Ursula in Eldritch?
I think in an expansion.
Okay.
She wasn't in the base set. I can confirm.
I know
that.
she's not in the base game of Arkham Horror, at least. That's where my investigator knowledge comes from. Okay.
We got her as a promo for Elder Sign at Arkham Knights.
Oh.
Yeah?
Not the last
that was
2
thing
years.
that happened.
It was a long time
Really?
ago. I think there was...
Oh, was it 3 years ago?
It would have been at
wasn't-
least 3, because the last 2 I don't remember seeing her, and I've been at those, so...
But I've never been to Arkham Knights without you, Nicholas.
What? No, because the first
Yeah.
one was Hoster, and the second one was the first time I went was Hoster, and the second time I went was the Dark God. So, I don't remember.
All right, well, we'll round back on this one.
Okay.
So her signature weakness is a treachery, Call of the Unknown. It's a weakness, of course. With task traded. Revelation, put Call of the Unknown into play in your threat area. Forced, at the beginning of your turn, choose a location other than your location. When your turn ends, if you did not successfully investigate that chosen location this turn, take 2 horror and shuffle Call of the Unknown into your deck.
Oh my
Wow.
god, I love that so much.
This-
Like, it's nasty, but I love it.
This is brutal because it
Yeah.
doesn't go away unless you fail, and then it even doesn't even fully go away.
It goes until it hits you. It's like Rex's curse,
Yeah,
except instead of making you fail a test, it just deals you 2 horror. Mm-hmm. So here's hoping that Ursula's off-class is Survivor, and she can take Pete Sylvester.
yes.
I think we've been speculating, and I like the rogue idea. I like it if she.
Yeah,
was the rogue.
I honestly would be leaning there too.
Probably not Guardian.
Anyway.
I'm gonna go with not Guardian.
Probably not Guardian.
Yeah, I just
But how else is she going to boost up that one?
out on a limb there, but cool.
So, you guys like snakes? Because this expansion seems like it's just going to be just full of them.
Full of snakes. There's some pretty awesome treachery cards, like low on supplies, where it's peril. You have to choose one of these three things. Each investigator loses either 2 resources, takes a damage, or chooses and discards an asset they control.
Oof.
Yeah.
rough.
That's real rough.
And it's peril too, so like you can't even talk about it. I love peril. Oh,
I'm always real scared of these treacheries that scale per player, because that gets into Lord of the Rings territory of swinginess for multiplayer. But we'll see. We'll see. I'll wait to judge it till I've played it. The other fun thing that we haven't really seen a whole lot of substantial, but we've got a lot of, substantial evidence. We've got a lot of speculation. In this card fan, there is another, what seems to be a signature card, because it's a card that's a player card, neutral without a level. And it's an asset called Until the End of Time.
Oh yeah.
And in the art, there is a dude standing on a precipice looking up at a big beast, and he's got like some kind of magic bubble around him. People are... And there's... God, marketing must just have a heyday setting up these card fans, because there is very, very deliberately... The 2 cards in front of it are split, and there's a W that's showing, a capital W that's showing. So I think people are speculating that this is Calvin Wright? Is that the character's name?
I think that's the one that was thrown around, yes.
And I think, given what little I know about his backstory, it would make sense for him to be Mystic, so... Here I was hoping when it was announced that of course, it would be Diana Stanley, because Diana Stanley starts in Panama in Eldritch Horror, which, Panama's not very far from Mexico.
It's all... Yeah, it's like all the same place.
I can't tell if you're patronizing me or not.
Absolutely not. I'm joking.
Excellent.
I still couldn't tell it second time.
About the card fan, I love picturing Matt just snickering to himself as he's laying these cards out and snapping the picture, or on the computer, like adjusting them just so that we can just see an icon and just a letter. Like, I love that.
But one thing that really caught my eye, there's what seems like it's going to be an important enemy. It's front and center in this card fan, Ishtaka, Keeper of the Earth. And it is a Magali piece as well. It looks amazing. Very good art. And it's basically the exact same pose for you Lord of the Rings players as Hands Upon the Bow for Legolas.
It totally is.
It's basically the same art. It's really cool. I appreciated it. I don't know if that's intentional.
She also has a new keyword, alert.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Also,
I'm sorry. I was just gonna say. I think it's Keeper of the Edstli.
Oh yeah.
EZTLI.
It's Tali. Yeah. Oh god.
It's Tali.
We are gonna. I don't look forward to how much trouble we're gonna have with pronunciations in this upcoming cycle.
Keeper of the Snake. We'll just say that.
There we go.
Until we know more.
Snack Keeper.
Snack. All right.
All right.
But yes, alert though. That's exciting.
Yeah. Is that the?
We'll see.
Is that the opposite of aloof?
That's the thing. That was another thing that for once I was actually a part of the discussion right when this dropped. Normally I don't ever check Discord until like weeks after, and then I'm asking questions everybody's answered already. But we were talking about what alert could mean, and the one that I thought of that I actually think might be it is that you can't play events when you're engaged with it.
That's interesting.
Like I was thinking about what alert, what sort of role alert would have, and that's what came. A lot of people were talking about like it can't be evaded or it blah 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 or something like that, but some of the other stuff just felt a little too restrictive, whereas not playing events is more like, okay, you have to strategize around that in a bit more of a real fashion.
Or maybe when you move to a connecting location, it moves to that location too.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool too.
Ooh, kind of a different spin on Hunter.
Like Super Hunter.
Interesting. Oh God, I am very excited. I am loving Carcosa, but I'm glad to see that we're, at least it seems like we're going in a completely different direction with kind of this, treasure hunting type theme. I have no idea if we're actually going to be hunting treasure, but I don't imagine there's a reason to go to ruins in a pulpy story that doesn't involve trying to hunt treasure.
I just like you, I absolutely love Carcosa, but I will be happy to get back to a campaign where it's just like, kill the thing, you did it.
A campaign where you understand what's going on.
Right, yeah.
And instead Carcosa is going, now contemplate existence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is this game happening? Well, it's on my table, I think. I don't know.
Come to grips with your mortality.
All right, so moving on from the news, I'll actually go back because I managed to skip because it was kind of small. Community stuff. Nick, do we have anything by way of community stuff?
Yes, we do. I wanted to talk about a listener, or a avid Discord user, a listener, and someone that I've had discussions with pretty frequently over the past few months. He goes by the handle of Ransom Man. I believe his actual name is Jake, because that's on the end of his handle, but he's one of our Discord users and listeners who runs a YouTube channel called the Miskatonic Test Lab, where he records himself playing games of Arkham. I think so far they're pretty much all, they're almost all fan-made scenarios, and he plays them on Lackey CCG, which is a computer program similar to Octagon or Tabletop Simulator. And then he does commentary where he talks about the game. He talks about, if it's a fan-made scenario, he talks about his thoughts about it. And they're very entertaining to watch. So I would highly suggest that if you haven't checked out his channel, that you do so. There will be a link in the show notes. I'm putting a link in our chat. But you can also just go to YouTube and search for Miskatonic Test Lab. And that's Miskatonic with a K. And then a C on the end. So, you know what? Just look for the link in the show notes. So.
That works. And he did a good job playing to his audience by starting out with custom stuff, because I think one of yours is featured on there so far, right, Nick?
Yes,
Frozen Tracks?
it is. Frozen Tracks. He did a video on Frozen Tracks, so I'm really appreciative of that. And he had some good stuff to say about it. And I'm currently working on getting Scenario 2 updated so that he has something to continue on with that campaign. I think he played Jenny during that scenario, so...
Wunderbar. Anything else on community stuff?
That was all that I had for this episode, unless you know of something that I'm missing.
No,
Okay.
no, just double checking. We're good. Scott, we got any fun rules stuff that came up this last bye week?
Yeah, one that I found interesting was people were trying to figure out a way with the helpless passengers on Essex County Express or innocent revelers in Carnival, how they could kind of cheat their way around protecting them. And someone emailed Matt about calling in favors and basically using that to bring either the helpless passenger or the innocent reveler to your hand. Yeah, so it gets kiboshed because in the ownership and control rule reference thing, it's if a card would enter an out-of-play area that doesn't belong to the card's owner, the card is physically placed in the owner's equivalent out-of-play area instead. So if I was controlling one of your allies or something, even if you're another player and it gets killed, it actually goes to your discard. And it's the same thing with these guys. So the owner is the scenario itself. And so the scenario has no hand. And so it would simply be discarded. And this would also trigger the forced effects on innocent revelers. And also the helpless train guys. Like, what they would leave play. And so it's probably not a great idea. That being said, it's still considered to have been returned to your hand. So you could use calling in favors to sacrifice one of them to help you get out an ally you want. So
That's pretty good.
God, rules are weird.
yeah.
Pretty good.
Yeah, because basically, like, it hits that out-of-play area, which is your hand, and it says, wait a minute, I'm not supposed to be here, switch. So it does hit your hand, but momentarily. So.
That's hilarious.
So what would happen then if I had leveled up Chance Encounter in my deck and I had a Chance Encounter with your Manatee and then used Calling in Favors on the Manatee? Would he then go to your discard pile. Same
So you're
situation.
controlling my manatee?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so you would call in favors to bring him up to your hand. And then
It would switch to your hand.
he would switch to my hand. And then
okay.
you would search for that ally with you said upgraded ally or upgraded manatee. So you would get 5 resources off the ally that you find with calling in favors.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
really interesting.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so you could...
That adds some interesting flavor to Chance Encounter.
Yeah, well, and then Chance Encounter and Flare, like you could steal someone's ally for a turn and then just calling in favors it back to their hand or something. Like, that really opens up some stuff, yeah.
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 There's shenanigans to be had there.
Right? I'm sitting here thinking, like, what deck can I build now that's all about stealing allies and then just giving them back? Like, is there a strategy there? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of borrowing almost.
Yeah,
Especially if you pull it from their discard pile, right? Like you
You were done with it.
Yeah, you were done with it.
All right.
And then at the end of the turn, I'm
Alex.
giving it back to you.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's...
Okay, so I'll expect your guys' full report on Pickpocket Wendy next time.
Hang on, I'm doing temporary min, so...
Oh,
Well, I can't be bothered to do any work.
I've already got a deck name, but I'm not going to record it, so...
All right. So then, guys, I think that brings us around to our main Tupac. Yes.
Yes.
It does.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about skills. So skills are kind of everything, right? Skill checks are what make the Arkham world go round. So it definitely holds to reason that big swings in numbers in your skills are really going to affect the way you play the game. Mm-hmm. So let's just kind of go across the Investigator card. So talking quickly, well, maybe not quickly, about willpower.
Oh.
What would you guys say is are the important uses of willpower as a stat?
I would say, obviously the encounter deck.
It's, and willpower, like, willpower specifically, willpower and agility are both, like, the defensive skills, and willpower is, like, defense against the non-direct threats, it seems like. It's the encounter treacheries and the tricks and stuff like that. And then it's one that Mystics specifically will want high will, obviously, because they can switch will out with other skills in order to test to their strength. But other than that, like...
Well, isn't that enough? I've always kind of thought of willpower as... obviously, if you're playing Mystic and you're playing spells, like there's obvious uses for it there. You're replacing other, probably less good skills with your best one. But beyond that, I've always kind of thought of willpower as like your board stabilizing skill, right? Because the encounter deck is just going to take swings at your board one way or the other, trying to move you around, trying to do damage, trying to discard assets, whatever it happens to be. And I would actually love to see a stat on this, but it feels like the majority...
I was just going to say, I want one of our
like the
fans...
majority of those stats are willpower.
Yeah, one of our fans should totally come up with a graph or something that shows number of released treacheries that test each skill. And I would imagine that willpower is head and shoulders above the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Head's the icon, is the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just the head. It's a two-faced coin.
And I mean, thinking about it too as a defensive skill, I think you're right, Nick. But Mystics are that class that can turn it into an offensive skill, whether through clue gathering or actually attacking.
Right.
Yeah, I do like with the Mystics, you can, if you want to put all your eggs in one basket and then fail at where Doom awaits, you can just load up on all the replacement effects, and also
This is getting too real for me. But
I know, I just wanted to trigger you.
And then, so you do all the tricks that let you perform the defensive skill as if it were, we'll just say an actual skill, and then the game eventually just goes, no, sorry, you have to play the game.
Yeah, but it almost, I don't want to say it makes deck building a little bit easier, but when you look at your deck, you're like, I just need to boost willpower. It's not like a Guardian who's like, okay, I need to have a boost for my willpower so I don't get like killed by rotting remains. I need to boost my combat because reasons. I should probably help out with clues. Like the Mystic is just like, all right, all in on willpower. Get me those rosaries and the Renfields and.
yeah, it really does incentivize putting all of your eggs in one basket.
Mm-hmm.
But when that basket
Gets tipped over.
falls into the river,
Yeah.
the river of intellect icons, it can be a thing. So talking then about how various willpower stats play on your investigator. So I think we've already kind of touched on it a fair amount. How does having like 4 or more willpower affect the way you play any investigator? Like Mystic's fairly straightforward. Mm-hmm. You're leaning into spells, but say your Ashcans or your Normans. Norman's a bad example because he gets purple too, but you know what I mean. How does that affect the way you play, or does it?
I think it affects the deck building a bit for me. Especially with Zoe or Ashcan, I'm always like, oh, should I throw a cheeky shriveling in there as one of my splashes, just because they can use it. But I also see it. I'm like,
Zoe would have been the better example.
Yeah, or what was it called? Storm of Spirits, the AOE.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah. Well, and with Zoe specifically, I remember the first time I built a Zoe deck, the first thing I threw in was the investigation spell.
Rite of Seeking.
Yes, was 2 copies of Rite of Seeking, because that 2 intellect isn't going to get you anything, unless you use Flashlight to drop a location down to 0. But even then. Rite of Seeking seems like that was made for Zoe. It does. It definitely influences how you can play with that will. It's like, okay, suddenly my will is higher than 3. What can I do with this? How can I manipulate my deck in a way to exploit that strength?
Mm-hmm. I also feel just safer with against the encounter deck with a higher willpower guy, because I'm just like, even if I don't play off the willpower, I'm just like, sweet, that's like something I don't really need to worry about or build against in my deck.
Right. Mm-hmm. And that's I mean, we've talked about it plenty of times in the past, but that's one of the reasons why we don't value Skids as a powerful investigator, is because he is so susceptible to a lot of the tricks that the encounter deck is going to be throwing at you.
So, then that leads into the next question. So when you have an investigator who's 2, when you have that single investigator who's got 2 willpower, or I suppose let's even throw the guys who are 3, just investigators whose forte is not willpower. How does that affect the way you build and the way you play, outside of just getting really angry whenever you see Frozen in Fear?
I tend to include 1 or 2. I think I include guts in almost every single deck I make. And then if it's a character that has low sanity to begin with, like half of our Guardians, then I'll end up throwing in Say Your Prayers as well. Simply because 3 will, you need, especially in Carcosa, you're going to need to boost that at some point. And if you're lower than 3, then you definitely want something up your sleeve to help get you out of those sticky treacheries.
Mm-hmm.
So, it kind of sounds like then that we're just kind of resigned to the fact that willpower is just kind of something that every investigator needs. So whether you have it up front or whether you need to build for it, you're thinking about it when you're playing an investigator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, unless you're building a deck that you're planning on powering through a scenario so fast that you don't see, or even in solo. Half the time with solo, how often are you going to see those treacheries? Well, no, even then. I think unless... Yeah, I'd said that, but then as soon as I said it, I was like, no, they still show up. I still get Frozen in Fear when I play Skids. Of course I do. But, unless you're building...
Yeah, you do.
Unless you're building...
It finds you.
Yeah. Unless you're building a deck that you plan on beating the scenario so fast, like you're building specifically for a scenario, I think it's a good idea to have at least 1 guts, if not something else.
And even then, maybe that's your plan, but I'm going to guess that the encounter deck has different plans for you.
Usually does.
Yeah. I'm going to beat this in 3 turns. Yeah, I'm sure you are.
Everyone's got a plan till the encounter deck punches you in the mouth. Yeah. So, I think you bring up a good point there, Nick. Do you think the way to go when you're not as secure on willpower, your kind of board stabilizing stat, do you think the way to go is to kind of build more speedrun aggro and just kind of try to get it done before it wears you away?
I think it's entirely dependent on the investigator that you're playing, and some investigators are going to handle that sort of play style and that deck build better than others. That was just something that was the only thing that came to mind was okay, if I have an investigator who's low will and I don't want to include willpower tools, then how do I mitigate what the encounter deck does? And the only thing that came to mind for me was play faster. So that you see less cards. Fewer cards.
Faster and more intense.
Right, yeah.
All right, fair enough. So I think that covers willpower. So let's move it on then to intellect. So intellect. It's, dare I call it, the most important skill? Because I think most scenarios, the primary objective is the acquisition of clues, right?
I think I would not argue with you.
Yeah, I would agree.
If you said it was the most important skill. Or I guess it's the skill linked to the most important aspect of moving the game forward, which is clue gathering.
Yeah, unless you're playing an atypical scenario that you get clues in a different way. But even then, like most scenarios, the basis is still use intellect, and then they'll have one or two interesting locations or situations where you can get around that. I think there are more
for those alt investigators.
Yeah, or even like a location that you get to, and it's like this location investigates using combat instead of intellect or whatever. So I think with intellect, and I could be wrong, and this is totally just based on my own experience, but I think there are more player cards in Arkham that substitute like getting clues or like substitute investigating than anything else. Or like that core mechanic as far as how you get clues, other than just doing a straight up investigate test. And I mean, and that speaks a lot to having what high intellect can do for a game.
So do you mean like working a hunch, evidence?
Yes, yep. Like all working a hunch, evidence, right of seeking, these cards that allow you to obtain clues without making an intellect test. Am I wrong?
But at the same... No, I agree, and I think that does kind of highlight the importance of it, that the game has to give investigators who don't have it options to get around it. But at the same time, as we've kind of pointed out, like the game keeps you honest on intellect. Especially the first Curtain Call was pretty rough.
Yes.
I feel like Carcosa in general really wants you to be able to just put intellect icons on the board.
Curtain Call was a pillowcase full of doorknobs to the face that I just was like, what is going on? Like the first time I played that, I was like, I didn't bring enough books.
Doorknobs?
Is it batteries? I'm trying to remember what he says in Arrested Development Season 3. The Warden? Is it batteries? Did I fuck up the reference?
Oh, yeah, no, it's batteries.
Damn it!
I'll have to have you.
Why do I assume people have read my screenplay?
Yes! He's trying to be funny and everyone's just like...
But anyway, yeah, like that, like having book icons in your deck, having intellect in your deck is almost like a necessity, you know. And you can look at it this way too. Like if you're playing true solo, are you gonna play an investigator with 2 intellect?
I've tried. It sucks.
Yeah, I've tried Zoe solo, and it's terrible.
It's a rough time.
Yeah. It's rougher than it should be.
Yes.
And I think we learned this big lesson, and not to keep harping on this, I'm not trying to bug you, Sean, but like where Duma waits, right? Where the first time,
I couldn't agree with you more, Scott.
The first time we hit this hard cap where it said you need to investigate like a normal
you need
investigator,
to do it without any tricks.
Exactly. I think whenever you're building a deck, especially probably 2-player or solo, 3-player you can probably get away with it because other people will be doing intellect-y things. But you have to have a way to boost your intellect. You have to have a way to investigate straight. And so for like Mystic with Agnes, let's say, throwing in Arcane Studies would have probably been enough to get you through if you had drawn it, right? Like I think when you're building a deck, you need to have a thought in your head, okay, how am I going to pass intellect tests? Because they're going to come up. They're on treachery cards. Yeah. Now they're on locations. Now their whole campaign's built around punishing you if you don't have enough. So I think that icon has to be drilled into your head.
Yeah, it's when you're deck building, it's not so much a matter of what am I going to do if an intellect test it becomes important. Okay. It's a matter of what will I do when I hit an important intellect test.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is interesting because, like I said, I throw guts in, and it may just be the investigators I play, but I put at least 1 guts in almost every investigator deck that I build, but I don't think I put perception in any of them. And that could just be because the investigators I play have their own tools to accommodate that, or they just have high intellect.
I think the other part of that too, Nick, because I totally noticed that with myself, and I realized, well, I'm only going to have to pass a couple treacheries that do willpower, and only a few of them are going to really matter, right? Like, there's some treacheries I'm just going to be like, I'll take it on the chin. And so you might only need 1 or 2 guts. Right. But perception, like, you need to find a lot of clues. And 1 or 2 perception is just like...
You need a sustained solution.
Yeah, which, like you're saying, Nick, you put in those tools that are repeatable, or like flashlights, right? It's just,
So then does that mean that an asset that provides a consistent benefit to intellect is generally more desirable than one that provides a consistent benefit to will? It seems like it. Like Holy Rosary versus, like flashlight.
Magnifying glass?
Or magnifying glass. That's a good because that's a class one, so that's a good one to compare it to.
Yeah.
I think I include magnifying glass a lot more often in decks that can take.
Well, you also play a lot more Roland than
that's what I was.
Anyone else?
But anytime, like even when I play, like I played Marie the other day, and I didn't put Holy Rosary in that deck because I just didn't feel I needed it.
Sure. Yeah. I also feel like, and I haven't checked the actual library of cards, so I don't know if this is 100% true, so this is just a gut feel, but I feel like more investigators who lack intellect have more options to deal with it than there are static boosts to willpower for investigators who might want them.
Yes, 100% yes. Yeah,
so
willpower kind of seems it's just like, well, if your willpower sucks, you got to take it on the chin. But if your willpower is good, here's a bunch more tools to make it better.
Well, and outside of Mystic and maybe does Survivor? Yeah, because Peter has his upgraded version has a static will boost.
And Dark Horse, which is like the best card.
Well, and Dark Horse, yeah. But like outside of those 2 classes, Guardian has. So it's really just Seeker and Rogue that don't have static willpower boosts built into their assets.
Who's that guy who Dario, there we go. Dario has a boost.
But
he's will?
Yeah,
he's will and intellect, but he's a big ass.
He is.
I wouldn't consider Dario kind of like a one size fits all solution if you need willpower and rogue.
He's one that you're definitely building your deck around if you're including him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think Seeker has a willpower boost.
I don't remember. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah. Except every single Seeker that's out there can take someone else's. Sorry, Sean, continue on.
No. 100% accurate. Goddamn Seeker, they're so good.
They are.
Yeah.
So when you guys are playing a Daisy, a Norman, someone who's got 4 to 5 intellect, how does that affect the way you build your deck? Are you finding you throw in fewer magnifying glasses, flashlights, fewer boosts because 5 just kind of gets you where you need to be, or does it affect it?
I don't really use magnifying glass all that much when I play Daisy. When I play Rex, I do. But yeah, for Daisy, once I hit that 5 point, like then I'm not really looking for intellect buffs so much as I'm looking for the replacers to like MoM and that sort of thing. So yeah, I mean, Daisy I feel a little better about being able to investigate just straight, just with the stat as it is. But even with... And then again, the thing with Rex is like, his ability is centered around him succeeding by a lot. So of course magnifying glasses would find a better place with him than potentially with Daisy.
Oddly enough, I play Rex the same as you, as everyone does, right? Like, just put that...
Well, Rex kind of an outlier, because he incentivizes you to have as much intellect as you can throw in.
Win by a million. I still play Magnifying Glass, 2 of them, and probably a Flashlight in Daisy, and the reason why is if I can get her intellect to, like, 7, or I put out Milan, there's, like, 8 or something, I know I never have to commit a card to a test.
Yeah.
And, like, so every single time I go to investigate, it's pretty much just assumed I get the clue. And I like that feeling of security if I'm the investigator that's investigating. If I investigate 3 times, I'm finding 3 clues.
Right.
So...
That is job security right there.
Yeah. And in a way...
It's very unlikely that you'll be unvoted off the island.
Yeah, and in a way, if you want to think about it, kind of, it's almost like an action compression or action saving where if you've got almost a guaranteed outcome except for the tentacle, that's a very efficient use of cards and whatnot. But,
Right, because your chances of wasting an action by failing are minimal.
right.
Yeah, I'm kind of in between on that. I think the last few times I've run Daisy, I haven't bothered really with any intellect boosts, except, of course, the best intellect boost in the game, higher ed.
Oh, well, yeah.
I thought you were going to say
Because-
Milan.
Well, he's good too.
Milan
and
plus
he enables
higher
higher
ed.
ed,
Oh.
it turns out.
Yeah, they're amazing together.
Like chocolate and peanut butter.
When you have both out, Daisy is essentially 7 intellect.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just always.
Yep.
I'm trying to remember how I ran Norman. I think I didn't really run any intellect boosts in Norman either. And can we talk about the fact that it is a crime that Norman cannot take higher education? He is actually a college professor who can't take higher education.
Norman is such a weird animal, though, when it comes to intellect, because it's like, it's level 0, but then as soon as you start upgrading, you're looking at a totally different class with totally different strategies. So how heavy do you want to lean into that? Like, I've never built a Norman deck, so I guess I'm not sure. But is your level 0 build really like heavy sort of intellect, and then just as you upgrade, you replace that with your mystic tools?
I mean, I can only speak for the one deck that I built in my Lightning Gun Zoe campaign. But yeah, I mean, it started out pretty kind of
Standard seeker.
basic seeker. Yeah, your I've got a plans, your mom's deductions. I don't think I threw in anything notably different.
So I think the real question then is like, what do you, when you start adding in your mystic cards, what do you take out from Seeker? Are you replacing like I've got a plans with Shrivelings, or like what? How does the deck shift?
I think what I did is Shriveling was in my level 0 deck just because I really, really hate the feeling that comes with drawing an enemy and not having a good way to deal with it.
Right.
I build my decks in whatever way I can not to have that feeling. Mm-hmm. So I've got a plan, MoM, and a full set of Shrivelings in my level 0 deck. So like my first 6 experience just went to upgrading the Shrivelings to level 3. Trying to think what started to come out. I ended up getting Grotesque Statue in there. That was pretty good. I think that came out for a skill or something, like an Inquiring Mind. I don't know. Norman is an odd beast.
Yeah, and that's why I'm
just
curious
do an episode on Norman.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how, like, because you're going from a class that prioritizes intellect to going to a class that prioritizes will, and I'm curious to see how that would shape how your deck changes. Like, I don't think we've seen an investigator whose deck has the potential for as widely, like, ending a campaign as widely different as how it started, other than maybe Lola. Maybe.
Yeah, Lola, if you spend your first 2 experience on 2 adaptables, that deck could it's basically like it's the Argo, right?
It changes the game.
Like, or wait, is it the Argo? What's the what's the metaphor for eventual changes to a thing? It's some ship metaphor. I'm gonna look it up.
We can go with Argo. That's fine. It works for me right now. But yeah, just like Lola with double adaptable is like, she needs it though. Honestly, like, I can't imagine not having adaptables in a Lola deck. But anyway.
Oh, it's the ship of Theseus.
Is that?
It's the Theseus paradox. It's a thought experiment that raises the question of whether an object that has had all of its components replaced remains fundamentally the same object.
If I get all my my human parts replaced with cyborg parts, am I still Nick? I don't know. Let's ask Theseus. Anyway, moving on.
Or ask Darth Vader.
I'm more interested to see what parts you had replaced.
Or which ones I start with.
Giggity.
All right, that got weird. So for those investigators that start with really low intellect, your Marks, your Zoes, kind of your Ashcans in a certain sense.
Ashcan is so, like, because
he's an odd duck.
We
too.
never talk about Ashcan. We always talk about Dukes. So I don't think that we can include Ashcan in that.
That's fair. So how does that affect the way you play it? I know we've already talked about it. I mean, do you really focus on how many book icons you have in your deck at that point, or is it more leaning toward cheesing clues in certain ways?
I think it's cheesing for sure. Like, I mean, like cheesing as in flashlights, evidence for Mark,
right? Lockpicks,
yeah. Well, not for
whatever it happens to be.
Yeah.
And that's when it comes back to, like, you would never play these characters solo. Like, you would never play a game solo with Mark, would you?
I did. I
tried it.
I did
you
campaign.
really so well?
In the
I did a Dunwich campaign with him and died in Where Doom Awaits. Imagine that.
Wow. Not surprising. Yeah.
I mean, Sophie helps Mark a bit, but you can. It's tough to lean on that.
And it's limited.
Really hard.
Yeah, it's like that. You can't do that all day. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it sounds like then we just kind of work with the cheese that we're given and pray to God that once we hit those bottlenecks, like your Where Doom Awaits, like your curtain calls that require honest intellect tests, that we just
just
let Cthulhu take the wheel.
Don't play the game. Yeah, I don't like. It's how many perceptions are you going to throw into a Mark deck, and how many desperate searches? It's like that sort of thing. Like desperate search would make sense in Mark. But it's just like, when you're dealing with that low of intellect, it's almost just like, play team and let someone else handle that part of the game. Like, you do progress, I'll do everything else, or I'll do, you know, my strength. I don't think that's something that you necessarily try and build around in Mark or in Zoe.
My campaign with Mark was very much like a thought experiment. Like, can this work? And it didn't. Because a lot of the there was a couple times the scenario ended because I just couldn't get clues. And I just stood, like, in a last-ditch effort, just killing whatever came after me. But, yeah, the scenario was just timed out. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, Essex County Express. I was like, should I even play this or just accept that it's going to happen?
Then you get the car.
I remember that's how we approached it for Iron Man.
Yeah, with Iron Man's, how many cars in can we get? Yeah.
Can anyone find their delve too deep before we lose?
So it kind of sounds like then, with those investigators who are a little bit hobbled in intellect, that teaming up someone who complements their weaknesses is kind of the way to go.
Yeah, because even though like we said, there are more cards that help with clue gathering than anything else in the game, like as far as cheesing around that. At the same time, it's just like, if your intellect is straight up low, it's going to limit so much else of what you can do or what you can even handle. So I honestly think that, like, when you're talking about a solo game, you're going to want a character with at least 3 intellect. At least.
I'd agree.
Fair enough. So let's move on from there into combat. So combat. This God, I feel like this one's the most complex of all of them to talk about, because combat is definitely what your monster mitigation, but every investigator has options to avoid combat if they so choose.
That's
right?
true.
But it's also just like it's very I see it similar to intellect in that, like, while every investigator has options, the options that are permanent or the options that stay in play are going to be intensely more useful than the ones that don't. So, like, if you're talking about, like, your backstabs and your sneak attacks, like, those are helpful, but in certain scenarios, they're only going to get you so far because there's going to be more enemies than what you can deal with. And so then it's like, how do you get around that? Do you play a Derringer? Do you play Switchblade? Probably level 2, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So I still think that combat falls into the same realm as intellect, in that it's something that you want, if you either want to have it at 2 or 3 or higher, and if not, then you definitely want to make sure you have a good swath of tools to supplement that. And of course, I'm talking for true solo.
I think you're totally right, Nick. Like, it's similar to intellect, where I think you want something that's more reliable. Like, in Seeker, you'll have I've Got a Plan, which is absolutely incredible, but you can use it twice, and then you're done. So let's hope you don't get 3 enemies.
Right.
So you kind of need something more reliable.
And I think, Scott, you hit on it a lot, and I think it's a completely valid point. Like, even if you're using all these other tricks to kind of cheese the more effective allies, or the more effective enemies, rather, the bigger enemies, you still want a solution for your acolytes and your rats. Because
Yes.
if you're using I've got a plan to take care of an acolyte, you're losing
Yeah,
that
you're doing
battle of
things
economy.
wong. Yeah.
and that
Like if you have to burn your mom to well, that got weird. If you have to burn your mind over, well, burn your mom. There's our episode title. If you're burning that on an acolyte, it just feels like such a waste of a really effective tool to get yourself out of what will eventually be a much worse situation.
Right, and I think that brings us then to the idea that with combat, and I think you could even potentially say this to a degree with intellect, but mainly with combat, it's not so much boosting combat that's something you want your tricks for, but it's more like boosting damage. So I would be much better. I would feel much better having just like a +1 or +2 that just sits in play to combat, but then having a few events or like my vicious blows or what, like something that I can play from hand to just give me that free damage on occasion. Because having a high combat will at least mean that it'll take you more tests, but you can still do it. Whereas, having the damage that's temporary in your hand, like that feels better.
Yeah.
So, I guess starting with what we've been talking about. So your Marks, your Zoes, your Rolands, your Yoriks. If you're 4 or 5 up combat, what does that do to your deck build and your play strategy?
You pick weapons and you put them
weapons,
in.
right?
Well, and I think like when you're at 3 or 4, like 4 maybe not as much, but 3 for sure, you're looking at stuff that's going to give you combat buffs. And when you get to 4 and especially 5 with Mark, you're looking at stuff that gives you consistent damage buffs. So,
Yeah, and that's kind of what's interesting because we lump together intellect and combat as quote the offensive skills because they are what more or less progress your investigator against whatever the encounter deck's doing. But they're also interesting in the player card pool because while intellect is important, and as we talked about, we plan a lot around having it and having clue acquisition. I feel like we consider combat and damage way more carefully because I feel like it's more important to have that action compression that is a damage boost.
Yes.
In combat, it's way more important there than it is, for your deductions or whatever you would do your action compression for clues. Also, there just aren't that many options on the intellect side.
right. Yeah, and I think that's like I've mentioned before on a previous episode, I'm to the point where I consider enemies literally just a time sink. Like the core of the game is get clues now. And enemies are just one more thing to prevent me from getting clues. So I would much rather clear out these little obstacles, like your acolytes and like your rats and your whatever, any enemies that come my way, clear them out in a single action, and then be able to spend the rest of my turn getting clues. Because now I'm to the point where in my head, grabbing those clues is literally the game. And how can I get more clues fast? You know what I mean? So
yeah, and avoidance of attacks is another kind of dimension to that too. Because if you have to delay getting that last clue on a location for a turn, fine, you're just waiting a turn to do it.
Right.
But if you miss a shot or you don't have the right damage to kill the enemy that's in front of you and you have to delay finishing that obstacle for a turn, it's then going to tax your stats and weaken your board state. So I feel like that might be another reason why we have more damage boosters than we do extra clue boosters.
Yeah, for sure.
So how about those investigators with low combat? How about I know this is kind of where we started this entire conversation, but your Wendy's, your Murray's, eventually your Ursula's.
I mean, some of them can take the mystic options, I think, or they have options within themselves, like Strange Solution. But I usually
not Norman though.
No,
not Norman.
Yeah, Norman's tough. Like he'd have to basically be shriveling 3.
Yep, or 5. He can take 5.
Yeah, with them, it's just like you start looking at what other options there are to either avoid combat, but you can't avoid combat all the time, like we talked about. Like there are scenarios that straight up require you, or maybe not require you, but the easier way for you to get through it is to defeat an enemy. And that's like you really have to think about when that comes up. Or not even that, like when there's one big enemy that's just locking down the board or something like that. So with a 1 or 2 combat investigator, it's just, I don't know, bring a fire axe.
Fire axe is a really good go-to.
Mm-hmm.
Because it can also do it. It also boosts your stat like up to 6, which is insane. Right. And it can add to that damage boost as well, which is what we're so seeking.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's something that, like, if your investigator has low combat, then the odds of you having damage boosters in your deck are very low. So then it's just, how are you going to chew through those 3-4 health enemies without something like Fire Axe?
Yeah.
Yeah, when I've got an investigator who's not terribly good at, your honest-to-goodness fighting, I tend to think of it less in terms of, okay, how am I going to do combat, and more of, okay, how am I going to mitigate enemies? Because like you pointed out, Nick, like, really what they are distractions from your overall goal. Now, granted, they can kill you if you let them go unattended too long, but yeah, so say someone like Wendy. Obviously, she's got high agility, she can evade, she can bob, she can weave, she can waylay now, which is an amazing card. So I tend, in those investigators, not really to look at, okay, what weapons do I need, whatever. It's more, how do I respond when an enemy pops up in front of me? Am I going to have a disc in play? Am I going to have, a MoM to beat up on them?
No, Wendy's an orphan.
Yeah. Aww. But that brings us back to then, like, how we discussed earlier, where having a static, permanent adjustment to combat is more beneficial than having the events to play around it. Like, with Wendy, I would almost say I would rather have 2 fire axes and then maybe a couple of other, like, rogue or survivor tricks to help avoid combat, but having those 2 like, if I have a fire axe on table, that's going to make me feel a lot better versus if I have, 6 things to avoid a fight in my deck. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still on that mindset where combat is so prevalent in so many scenarios that having an asset or a permanent answer in play is more valuable than having 3 times that for just avoidance.
Sure. Because I think it's probably safe to say, with a couple small exceptions, that the investigators who are not terribly good at offensive combat are better at defensive combat. So they kind of maybe lean a little bit more on agility and those avoidance techniques. Which actually was the genesis of this discussion. Agility! What's it good for?
Absolutely nothing. Hey!
Thank you for having me there. So agility. I think we lumped it in with our defensive skills earlier. Some investigators are able to leverage it better than others, but I'm going to go on a limb here and say that as we sit right now, halfway through Carcosa, it is the redheaded stepchild of the stats or skills.
It is, I would say, yeah, it's the lowest on the priority totem pole. It's the one that, if everything else is answered, then you can start looking at what agility can do for you, unless your investigator is specifically set up in such a way to exploit agility. But even then, like, we have very few, again, permanent answers to, agility, like, to making use of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting a little bit better, like with the...
Yes.
Oh goodness, what's the one we just got upgraded? It's a 2 XP asset whenever you evade an enemy, draw a card, take a resource. Pickpocketing, there we go. So you've got your resource engine there. Lockpicks are insanely good for someone with high agility.
Oh man, lockpicks were a necessity. Like, the fact that they didn't exist before then was just like, wow! And I really hope that we see an upgraded version that adds extra supply to them or does something. Like, they're really... rogues really need them. So.
And I mean, we do have backstab and sneak attack and stuff like that, but like you said, Nick, nothing permanent. Like, we don't have some sort of weapon like nunchucks where...
Yeah, that replace agility for combat.
Yeah.
I think it's evidenced enough just by the fact that we've been talking about this entire time, like, oh, I generally throw 2 guts in about every deck I make, but I mean, manual dexterity makes it into
0.1%.
I have one run for your life in my Roland deck. Or whatever it's called.
And it's when you're
run for your life?
Yes, and it's when you're running for your life.
Right, and that's literally in there just for when my sanity's all the way down and I need to get away from this enemy. So,
yeah.
Because I think the main difference is not only does the encounter deck right now, at least the 2 or 3 campaigns we have, the encounter deck treacheries lean pretty hard on willpower. Mm-hmm. And I feel like characters with high willpower have more ways to leverage that willpower into other stats than characters with agility do.
Right.
For high agility. We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like you said, lockpicks was a godsend for those investigators. But I just don't feel like we're there yet.
Yeah, we're really not to a point. I would agree. We're not to a point where you can build an investigator deck solely around agility like you could with a mystic deck solely around willpower. And I'm excited for when we get there because Rogue, like I've said it before, I really enjoy playing Skids. He's probably one of my top 5 investigators as far as just overall like how I feel when I play him. But it's just I don't play him that often because literally one Frozen in Fear can ruin your entire scenario. Mm-hmm. And it's too rough.
And forget about it when you get 2.
Oh my god! I needed Rex to come save me. I couldn't do anything. I had 2 and I couldn't get rid of any of them. It was terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah. Agility and that's one thing. I'm sorry, Scott. I'm just gonna say real quick. That's one thing I worry about with. We talk about Forgotten Age seeming like it's going to be an agility heavy cycle. It worries me that like after that, then like unless we get player cards to really expand what agility can do once Forgotten Age is done, then are we just going to go back to being intellect combat, whatever, like outside of this cycle, are we going to, I hope that we still feel comfortable playing high agility characters.
I have the feeling at least we'll have more tools on the player side.
That's the hope, yeah.
Because right now, I don't feel like I pick a character because, they have high agility and I can do cool things with that. It's more like, I want to play this character and, there's some cool things I can do with agility.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I've learned with agility is, by playing on hard and expert a few times, that agility can also be we have no way of dealing with this. We're all in one location or near a location. And it's like, there's this big enemy. We're not set up to deal with him. Let's evade him for a turn, and then, so-and-so can put out their machete, and so-and-so can get their fire axe, and then next turn, we might be able to handle him. And if we can't, we'll just
kick the problem down the road ability.
Yeah.
Which sometimes is great. Honestly,
sure.
If they don't have Hunter, sometimes it's like, okay, just leave this guy here, and we're done.
Well, totally, but the problem still is that agility isn't an answer for anything. It's not a solution. It buys you time, generally, for what we see now.
I think if you have this
it's
enemy...
soft control.
Yeah, if this enemy doesn't have Hunter, and it's just going to stay in this location, and you're done at that location, I think it is an answer.
But there are other ways to get away from... But if that's literally the case, like the enemy's sitting on an unused location and it doesn't have Hunter, there are other ways for you to get away from that outside of using agility. But... all I'm saying is that the core, like, agility itself as a skill, like, willpower is an answer. It's an answer to the encounter deck. Intellect is an answer. Combat is an answer because it finishes enemies. Like, it removes them from play. Agility isn't a hard answer on its own without supplemental cards to modify how it's used.
I 100% agree to that.
Yes, and that is ultimately why we run into the situation where it's like, well, they have 4 agility, but they have 1 in combat, or they have 2 willpower, and that's you don't feel good going into a game like
Quit picking on Skids.
I just said that I love Skids.
No,
Skids has no answers, is what you're saying.
He has answers to enemies, but literally that's it. And he has some answers to intellect, but not much.
Okay, so I mean, I kind of laid my cards metaphorically out there. Is agility something you even consider when selecting / building an investigator currently? Is it something that comes into play outside of maybe going, oh, this person can take lockpicks when I have 2 experience?
If my goal is to, like when we're thinking like Dodge Tank Wendy, like if I'm thinking, hey, I really want to build a deck that capitalizes on agility, which is difficult right now still. I mean, there's much more
I was
cards.
about to say, Dodge Tank Wendy sounds amazing. Has anyone actually done it yet?
I don't think, as far as I've heard outside of the Night of the Zealot, I haven't heard of it being successful across more than 3 scenarios. So,
Yeah.
like Night of the Zealot is the only case where I've heard like great stories of Dodge Take Wendy, but it seemed like as soon as Dunwich came out, I've heard very few Wendy stories in general.
I think you need like a 4-player game to really be that dodge tank.
Oh yeah.
And getting 4 people together and you want to play Wendy when you're not really doing anything.
It's just a confluence of things that doesn't come together very often.
Like I theory craft a lot of dodgy or agility based decks, but to actually play them, because I finish up the theory craft, I'm like, all right, here's my deck list, and I look at it and I'm like, this is not exciting. Like,
Right?
I just yeah. Like
There's
when
been so many times I'm building decks for my wife and I to play, and I keep looking at Wendy like, I want to play her because I've never really given her a fair shake. Like, I've never played her for more than maybe 1, maybe 2 scenarios. And so I'm like, God, I want to try Wendy. But then I just look at, who would I pair Wendy with? Well, I need someone that can investigate, and I need someone that can deal damage. Then it's like, well, I guess Laura will play Roland, and then I'm just like, but I want to play Roland. Like, he's kind of my guy. So then I end up playing Roland, and then she plays Jenny or something. Like, you know, it's so hard to find a good 2-person pair up with Wendy that's consistent across multiple scenarios.
I think Wendy she can be very much an all-arounder, and her way of soft dealing with an enemy is to exhaust them, make sure that everything that needs to be done at that location has been done, and then getting out of there. She's all the high agility investigators, I feel, are a very different beast on how to play. And if you come in like yourself, like you play a lot of Roland, well, this is completely different, right? And I almost feel like when I play Roland, I'm like, so wait, I kill things instead of and I
you do.
I don't have to bob and weave the whole time.
Nope.
Or playing Mark, it's like, so I just draw cards and murder? Is that what?
Yes. Oh God, Mark. Oh, so fun.
I think evading has a place, but I think you're right, Nick. It's not a definitive answer most of the time.
Yeah, it's not. You're consistent.
Yeah.
Well, you're just kicking the can down the road, and sometimes that will solve the problem for you, but a lot of times, like, Hunter seems really prevalent nowadays on enemies. Mm-hmm. I want to say probably probably 50% of the enemies or more that we see have Hunter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's some scenarios where, like, that's literally all that there is just a bunch of Hunter enemies, or, like, one Hunter enemy, so, but...
So now Ian's in our chat. We're talking about the need to defend evading as a mechanic. And I will say, I think I've always been a decent champion for the value of evading.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
But in a lot of ways, it doesn't solve problems.
That's exactly it, is you can have that turn where you, okay, all right, I need to evade this enemy, and then you draw cards and you draw cards and see if we can get a weapon, and then nobody draws a weapon. And then next Mythos phase, you draw 2 more enemies. Like... That's the problem, is that it has the potential to be really good, but it's not consistent enough to bank your campaign on it.
I will say one thing, though. If the enemy doesn't have Hunter, evasion is a one-shot kill, right? Like,
yes.
If he has 6 health, but you evade him and he just sits there, well, you just essentially kind of did 6 damage. So there's...
but what if it has a board affecting ability? What if it has victory points? You know, there's the real question. What if an enemy has victory points and you're set up... Okay, sure, that's one thing. But let's talk about... Right. Anyway, I'm sitting here, I'm going to come up with 2 specific of examples, and that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about across the whole game. So, yeah, it's good in... I would even argue that it's good in most situations. But it's not good in every situation. And for the most part, those skills like combat and intellect, you want those in every game. Even will, you want decent will in almost every game. Agility, you're mostly fine without.
I think probably the best I can say about evade and agility kind of as a somewhat central strategy is for an action, assuming you're going to get the evade successful, you're turning off that enemy's damage icons and any keywords they have for the turn. Like that's what you're doing.
Right.
And I suppose you can then skip out and on out, but I don't know. All right, so I think we've beat this dead horse into the ground. So really looking forward to see where agility goes from here. I do think it is growing as a stat.
Yes.
But it's just not quite where the other ones are in importance and emphasis in kind of deck building and strategy. So I'm looking forward. I'm thinking that the Forgotten Age will kind of get us to parity.
Mm-hmm. Agility has the most work cut out for it right now.
Right.
I think is what it comes down to.
We need
the most legwork, would you say?
Oh god.
Oh yeah.
I feel
wouldn't,
like,
but you would.
I feel like if we got an agility weapon, that would go.
That's honestly, I think that's what we need.
Yeah.
I was kind of a little surprised that they didn't go agility for firearms and ranged weapons.
Ooh.
Because I know that's kind of the approach that a lot of RPGs go with, and I see why they didn't, because then that really kind of focuses on combat. But
Yeah.
I could also see the argument for if we get like a bow and arrow and that requires an agility test, I am on board.
Oh, that would be amazing if we get some sort of weapon that's an agility weapon. Then you have lockpicks and you have that agility weapon, and just with those two cards, now suddenly you feel like you have the freedom to explore other things.
What's the name of like a whip that's like a weapon? Doesn't it start with a B?
A bullwhip?
A bullwhip.
No, I'm thinking of something else.
A bullwhip.
No. I'll find it. But that's what I'm thinking of.
A cat of nine tails? Like something that
like bow something? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
a bow staff? That's not a whip, though.
No, not that one.
It's more of a lethal stick.
Yeah, well, Donatello and all that.
Oh yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps that discussion. I'll be interested to revisit this probably in a short segment after we see what's in the Forgotten Era, not era, Forgotten Age.
Valentine's Day 2019. Let's talk about feet.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, so let's move it on from there. I think we do have a little bit of catch up on our hotline. We had a call that came in quite a while ago that got buried a little bit. So I want to play this quickly here.
Hi Busters, it's Stéphane Bray from Montreal, also going as Lord of Chance on the web. Here's a suggestion for a topic I would love to get your take on. Arkham Horror is a co-op game, so what insight can you share from your experiences that you find take your game to a higher level through collaboration between investigators? For example, in dealing with enemies, in doing tests, in exploring, like including the classic when to go alone, in facing the encounter stage, in deciding who goes first. What strategies do you use at the start versus the end of the adventure? Anyways, you get my meaning, I'm sure. Any tips or tricks to improve the chances for success or just to enhance cooperative fun between players is what I would love to hear about from the crew. Again, Sean, Ian, Nick, and my fellow Canadian Scat, thanks for all the great work. Cheers.
I think one of the key things he asked was how are you going to deal with certain tests or aspects of the game. I think through our experience with Iron Man, I mean, when 4 people get together, say, okay, what are we tackling, which campaign, and who's going to do what, it's a lot easier to, not show up to the event with 4 Guardians or 4 Seekers. And so in a 4-player game, I'd say you pick one person to be the main killer, you pick one person to be the main investigator, and then you kind of have 2 floaters, I find works.
2 flex, yeah.
Yeah. And maybe those flexes can be one's slightly more fighty, one's slightly more clue gathering.
Yep.
But having 2 people in very defined roles, which we talked about, are like how you get through a scenario, you kill things and you find clues.
Right.
Yeah.
Notice how we didn't say, and make sure that one of your flexies is agility heavy. I'm just kidding. I'm done harping on agility. No, that's especially going into the game. Like if you're that serious about it, or if your group is that like ready for something like that, then definitely try and plan it beforehand. And then you run into those situations, especially if you go to an event or something like that, and everybody brings, like you said, the same color Investigator, and suddenly we have a team of 4 green, and it's like, well, all right, how are we going to do this? And a lot of stuff is scenario. Yeah, a lot of stuff is scenario specific as well, so then it comes down to like, okay, going into Essex County Express, what can we expect? How are we going to set ourselves up for the best measure of success that we can get? And now, of course, the Chaos Bag and the Encounter deck are always going to mess with that, but being able to talk about that stuff before you actually sit down to play is going to make a huge difference.
So, yeah, I mean, coordinating ahead of time, definitely a thing. Do we think that it's paramount to coordinating a good team, that you really deck build with each other ahead of time, or do you think you can go to, like, say, a pickup game with just kind of an all-around Investigator and still expect to do somewhat well?
I think that's more dependent on the scenario then. Like, it really depends on what the group is playing with. You know, if an all-rounder is going to be fine in a group, like, or 4 all-rounders are going to be fine or not. Mm-hmm. I would generally err on the side of, if your Investigator can do everything decently, then you're going to be okay. But again, there are scenarios that have proven me wrong in that regard.
I feel like if you have 4 generalists, you're never going to do anything great. And so, yeah, you might be okay. Like, if you're okay with combat, Nick, I'm okay. Sean, you're okay. Dealing with acolytes or these ghouls or whatever, it's cool. But when you have the big bad come in, I think you want someone like, essentially a guardian who has all this firepower with vicious blows and everything like that can actually put solid damage on it every turn.
Right.
And when you come across these locations with 4 or 5 shroud, you're going to want someone who is like, don't worry, I have all the tricks I need to deal with this intellect crazy test.
But then again, at the same time, if everybody's playing generalists and they all have 2 or 3 cards that let them, cheat clues off of a location, whether it's through evidence or it's through look what I found or something like that, then hopefully you'll be okay with those high shroud locations. Because for the most part, unless you're playing late in the campaign, you don't see too many locations that are higher than 4 in a single game, in a single scenario. So, but yeah, I would generally agree. Like, you're not going to do everything. You're not going to do any particular thing amazing. Yeah. But I think if everybody's able to cover their own ass in each of the, the core parts of the scenario, then I think you'll be fine.
I know for pickup games, like this last Invocation event I went to, I was like, okay, I need to build myself like a killing deck. I need to build myself a clue-getting deck, and then a couple well-rounded ones, so that when I'm the most experienced player there, and so when these guys whip out their deck, I want to try this, I'm like, okay, cool. I look at who has what, and I'm like, okay, I need to play my Mark deck, or no one here's getting clues ever, so I guess I will take that burden kind of thing.
Right.
So one thing he also asked was, in the middle of the game, how do you decide when to venture out away from the group? And when to...
How do you coordinate movement in general, I feel? So I think one of the biggest things that I consider is if we've got a location in play that's a high priority and there's 1 or 2 investigators that are really well suited to go take care of it, or if there's an enemy camped out somewhere where we need to go, or there's hunters that are going to be hunting around. Like, I guess that probably applies to some of the scenarios that are more the big map scenarios. Like, we did a lot of talking about this last night when we were playing Phantom of Truth, because between the organist hopping around and all the Byakis hunting as well, like, you just have to be so on top of where everything's headed at the end of the turn and make sure your movements, like, everyone is where they intend to be, and not accidentally get blindsided by the screeching Byaki.
Well, and then you also got one thing that I consider with locations is that what I plan for is I plan for the revealed side of a location to generally be negative, to be something that's bad. Either it's going to spawn an enemy, it's going to deal damage, it's going to punish me for actions, it's going to do something
It's going to end your turn.
It's going to do something like that. So I make sure
it's going to have a straight investigate test that you can't use any cheesy
right.
things on.
Yeah. So I try to, especially in team games, and especially in games when I don't know the scenario that well, I try to make sure that the person who's best equipped to be defensive or to be okay taking a hit is the one who's moving into that location. Like, well, maybe let's have, Jenny or Roland jump into this unrevealed location first, and then we can have, Daisy come in and clear it of clues or something like that. Like, you almost want to have a vanguard, like a character who is the one who's out in front of everybody else, that's able to take those hits, whether they're treacheries, they're forced damage, or horror, or enemies, or whatever. And you want to have that generally will be the person who's going first. Now, obviously, that's not always the case, but yeah.
I think, too, with map movements, you look at who's the biggest danger of leaving alone. So someone like Daisy, who has a couple little tricks to deal with enemies or whatnot, but ultimately needs a guardian, quote unquote, to actually guard her. And whether that be someone who's just good at combat, like someone like Agnes, or an actual guardian. I tend to think that, like, going back to our Iron Man, just a perfect example of like 8 or 9 games we played together. Keeping Rex...
Very well coordinated games.
Keeping Rex and Mark together, or close-ish, so if Rex got in trouble, Mark could walk over.
At least within earshot.
Yeah, and like... And then it was Agnes and Lola were the other two, and you guys were kind of all-arounders. You guys could stick together. And so I wouldn't say 2 Seekers go off alone. Like, that's a bad idea, I think. Right. So if you're dividing and conquering, kind of keep the squishy ones with the combat ones close-ish together. Like you said, in earshot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's a good thing to keep in mind, because... even if a location is clear, you never know when an enemy could pop up off of the encounter deck.
Exactly.
Right.
And you always have to have some sort of way to deal with that, even if that way is going, hey, Mark, do you want to take these spheres?
Mark protect?
I feel like... he also attack. I think I just feel like the biggest part to coordination is you just always keep in mind the problems that are likely to present themselves and make sure that you have a solution at hand for them. So, a big part of that, like kind of what we're talking about, is your squishy investigators getting off on their own. If enemies are what you're worried about, either that squishy investigator needs to have like a Mind Over Madness or I've got a plan in their hand, or someone needs to be nearby to bail them out if they get into trouble. So, but yeah, I think one of the last things I'd touch on that Stefan specifically asked in that question was, how do you determine turn order? Like, what do you guys use if we're not in a situation where it's the first turn and it truly doesn't matter?
Mm-hmm.
If there's an investigator with a weakness in play that uses 2 actions to get rid of, I generally have them go first, just because it's like, get rid of that action and then do something. You know what I mean? Or like, if I'm that investigator and I have that, I'm like, let me just do this real quick. Like, let me do this, and then I can go take a piss, or I can whatever.
Yeah.
And then...
the real world intruding on the game.
Right. But other than...
go make boom boom.
Yeah, other than that, it's really... it's so dependent on the board state.
Mm-hmm.
Like, 100% dependent on the board state, that there really isn't a strong answer for it. If you have an enemy that's going to mess up multiple characters in a row, like, try and clear that enemy first. If you have a location that's just, like, locking you down, or if you're, like, 2 clues away from advancing the act, definitely have the cluever try and go first and get those clues right away, so that you can advance the act and still have actions to deal with what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Or the agenda, for that matter. Like, I very often try to avoid setting myself up with no response when an act advances.
Yeah.
Because just because you're advancing the act, that doesn't mean that it's going to be all good when that act goes by. It could spawn a bunch of enemies like we see with Devourer Below. So you want to make sure that you're setting yourself up, just like with moving into locations, you're setting yourself up to deal with the potential that something bad could come around.
And I think another big aspect is not only anticipating what's coming, but what problems are currently being dealt with.
Right.
Like if you've got your investigator who's decked out to get clues engaged with an enemy, I think maybe a newbie mistake might be, okay, they should go first to try to deal with this enemy and get off. But at the same time, it might be way more efficient for the team as a whole for the Monster Hunter enemy, or Monster Hunter investigator, to come in, engage that enemy off the clover, even if that means they end up taking an attack. Like, it's better for the team and the overall goal just to get the heat off of the clover character so that they can continue to clover.
Yeah, in most scenarios, yeah, definitely.
All right, well, I think that just about covers it. Thanks, Stefan, for your question. I thought that was a real good one. If you have a question, a topic, a comment that you'd like to mention to us, please feel free to call the Mythos Busters hotline. That's 203-493-MYTH. I don't have it up in front of me, but we're going to go with that. I said it at the beginning of the show, and it's on all of our social media, so if you want to call us, that number will be there. Guys, let's move on into the close of the episode here. Nick, I believe you have an impression. Am I correct?
You are correct. Yeah, so this is a 5-star review submitted by Ransom Man. Well, he gets 2 name drops in one episode, so or by Jake, I think. That has to be Ransom Man. That's your real name, right? Like, you wouldn't put that at the end of your tag if that wasn't... Okay, good. Yeah, so he submitted a 5-star review. I've already been pretty open with who it is, but I'm just going to try and jump into it. I've been watching a few clips of this show to try and get back into it, but we'll see how well I can do this. I tell you what you do, you get this dang old podcast, man, get that dang old, put it right in your ears, put them earbuds in there to get the old, play that podcast, go boom, 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 just like that, man. You know, you listen, man, dang old, you just get that dog crowd out and listen to my boys 24 hours a day if I could. That dang, man, if I ain't listening, I don't know what you're doing. Tell the dog, Dave, service yourself, man. Listen, I tell you, man, it's just so good, just boom, just like that, with dang old 5 stars.
Fucking nailed it.
I have no idea what that reference was, but that was a joy to listen to.
That is Boomhauer.
Have you not seen any King of the Hill?
Very, very little.
Oh my god.
He's one of the
Such a
4
good
guys
show.
who stands there drinking beer and he just mumbles like,
And that's how he
He's
talks.
just-
Like he's just southern gibberish is how it comes across. And the funny thing is there's an episode where part of the episode is told from his point of view and everyone else talks like that and he talks normal. And it's so good.
That's amazing.
oh,
Awesome. Well, thanks, Jake, again for giving us more content on this episode. If you want to hear a wacky impression, feel free to leave a 5-star review out on iTunes and tell us which host you'd like to read the review in which impression. I believe we can look forward to Ian has another review to read next episode, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep,
Assuming
he
he's
has one submitted by Brady Sadler, so I'm looking forward to seeing
here. Oh, the Sadler. All right, awesome. Brady does good work in general, so I'm excited to see what he picked out for Ian.
Yes.
All right, guys, well, let's move it on into a little bit of high and Titanical time. Scott, what's grabbing you?
well, I had that invocation event, which was super awesome. Had a lot of fun, and that alt art Daisy, so good.
How about that Alt Art Daisy mini card?
Yeah, the spot gloss plastic.
Yes.
I was gonna say, you mean the new token that we got?
The other Hearthstone has been taking up a lot of my time. The reason being, they just did a huge balance patch, so they nerfed a bunch of cards, and they changed the way the ladder works. So it's a lot more forgiving. I think you can progress through the ladder over multiple months, because you don't get slammed back down to way low ranks each month now. So I think over the next couple months I'm going to try and hit Legend. I've tried to do it before, and it is a grind. I've got the Dad Legend, which is like level 5. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's you, instead of going all the way down, you lose 2 ranks
4.
from where you were when you 4 ranks,
4
okay.
ranks.
And every rank is 5 stars now.
Yes.
And as long as you get 5 wins in ranked mode, then you get the card back. So regardless of where you are.
And they still have
So yeah, I think
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and they still have the ranked floors where, like, at 5, 10, 15, and 20, like, you can't drop below those. So if you get to Dad Legend, rank 5, instead of dropping back down to 17, you'd go back to 9 instead, which is a huge difference. So if you're pushing for Legend 1 month and you almost get there, and you get to level 1, but you can't push to Legend, next month you're back down to only 5. So you're way closer. So it's not like because people in Legend would get knocked down to rank 17 or 16.
Right, and then if you're playing on day 1 or 2 of the season, you're running into a lot of players who are way higher skill level than you were when you ended last season. So it skews the numbers a lot. So I think this is going to be a lot better.
Yeah.
I'm reticent to admit with only you two on the podcast, but last weekend I rage uninstalled Hearthstone.
I expect nothing less.
I was gonna say I'm surprised it took this long.
Well, I've been really enjoying, like, basically all I've been playing, because I don't have it in me to get truly into Hearthstone and actually buy packs and, get up with the meta and whatnot. But I've been really, well, up to this point, really enjoying the dungeon runs, because that's kind of cool. You build the deck as you go. You kind of, you get the experience. It's solo. I do it on my own time. I don't have the pressure, blah, blah, blah. But I've been enjoying that. Up to the point, so the whole thing is there's a dungeon run for each class, and every class you complete, you get like a little crown for it, and if you complete all the classes, you get the big achievement and you get the card back. And the card back's not even that cool, so we'll go there. But I was trying to complete them. So I think Priest is the class that I've always kind of defaulted to as my favorite class when I dip back into Hearthstone. So I actually got the Priest dungeon run done in like 3 tries. So I'm like, all right, I can do this. So I've been slaving away at getting the mage through the dungeon, and it is so goddamn hard.
Mage is tough.
And well, maybe I just picked the wrong second one to go with, because I haven't gotten a single class through it again. So I've been probably working on this. Maybe I play a couple games every other day. I'm not really diligent, but I've been working at it for about a month. So at a certain point, I'm like, God damn it, I just need to get through this. So I finally get like some good sets. I'm building a solid deck. I get to the final boss, and it's the one where he just mills.
Oh.
He just mills your deck. So I'm managing the board. I'm getting little pot shots in on him. I probably made this game last a full 20 minutes because I added a bunch of random spells to my deck to counter the mill. I'm doing well. I clear his board, and I have like 2 cards left in my deck, 4 minions out on the board, and a fair few spells in my hand. I'm like, I am gonna close this. I milled his hand out. He draws 1 card and plays a 10-cost spell that says destroy all minions, and then draw a card for each minion that was destroyed.
Oh, Doom.
And I rage uninstalled that fucking game.
Yeah.
Because that's not even a game at that point. I did everything right and still lost.
Would you believe that Doom card is an actual card in the game? Like, you can play that as a player?
I mean, I could see it in a balanced... I mean, because when the deck is not that crazy focused and the health isn't that high, like, I could see it being a legitimate card in regular play.
When you're not
still
dealing
really
with 50
stupid.
health.
Like, that's the kind of card whose design I don't particularly enjoy, but I appreciate what it does probably in an actual competitive meta. But in that boss deck, where all it's doing is milling you and trying to outlast you, and then it just wipes the board and resets its hand, it's like, like, the only thing that I could have done was have a counterspell. But anyway.
I was just gonna say, isn't there a Jean-Luc Picard quote that's it's impossible to commit no errors and still lose? That's not weakness, that's life.
That's true. And I have enough life in real life. When I play a game, I'm trying to escape that shit.
Thank you for linking that, Scott, because I was just about to bring it up.
God damn it, you guys.
I will. Yeah,
I knew I should have waited for Ian to be here.
Dungeon runs are such a weird thing because they're fun to do, but then after you get through, like after you do your first really serious push on it, with me at least, I got to the point where I'm like, why am I even doing this? Like, it's really fun, but I could be spending my time in Hearthstone doing other things that are building my collection or increasing my rank or doing something else that's quote-unquote productive to my time in Hearthstone.
Productive's a really squishy term when we're talking about games.
It is. You're right, it is. But the problem is that dungeon runs don't have any incentive to doing them multiple times other than the fact that they're fun. And once you get beyond that, and it's like, well, I can only play Hearthstone for 45 minutes a day or whatever. Do I really want to spend all that time doing dungeon runs? Sometimes I do.
Right.
Most of the time now I don't.
I just wanted the card back. Which I got, so...
Right.
Yeah.
Do you use it?
Yes, all the time. It's like one of my favorite ones.
Okay.
Just to show other people that I beat Dungeon Run.
Sure.
Look at what I've endured.
See, and
Those
I don't...
boss decks are so stupid.
Yeah, well, and not only that, but Sean, I'm not going to blame you for uninstalling Hearthstone, because as much as the game is in a healthy state right now, it's so hard for new players to build a collection and get to a point where they can feel like they're accomplishing something. Like, we're getting to the point, we're going to be approaching the point where it'll be easier than usual, because in just a few months, I think.
Things are going to rotate.
Yeah, Standard's going to rotate out. And that will be the best time to get back into it, because then you'll be dealing with sure, people with bigger collections than you, but most of those cards aren't going to matter. You'll be collecting fresh with a new expansion like a lot of people. But overall, yeah, it's just so hard for a new player to feel like they're making headway with Hearthstone's current model. So
I'm really hoping by then that the LOTR digital card game will be an early release, so I'll have something to... Because basically the reason I got back into Hearthstone this time was because the LOTR digital game was announced, and I was like, oh, that's an itch that needs scratching.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be excited to try out Lord of the Rings as well, but I don't foresee myself dropping a lot of money on it.
Yeah. They're just copying Dungeon Run, right? It's going to be that, but Lord of the Rings themed.
Don't start any internet fights, please.
Oh, I already started a couple in the COTR Discord chat where someone's like,
boy.
Someone was like, this game's going to be bigger and better than Hearthstone. I was like, okay, good luck.
Yeah. It's not. I'm sure it'll be fun, and I'm sure it will be successful.
I'm going to go in the top support, because this is the way I'm going to get back into LOTR, because I'm not playing the card game anymore, pretty much. But I will fully support FFG with this. I think it's an awesome idea. I'm going to play it, but it's not going to surpass the market of Hearthstone. I'm sorry. It's...
No. I don't
it's not
think
competitive.
many companies win a battle against Blizzard.
Yeah.
Blizzard just does things so well and is so good at being first mover that, there's still not an MMO that's toppled WoW.
They're not good at being first mover. They're good at looking at what
Best
works
executor.
and perfecting it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. They never do anything. I'm a huge Blizzard fan, but I will straight up admit that they don't do anything new.
That's true.
Yeah.
Sorry, when I said first mover, I mean taking an idea and executing it so well as to bring it to the masses. They're the first one to WoW was the first MMO to really bust out, and I feel like Hearthstone was really the first digital card game that I actually hear people talking about on a regular basis.
Right. Yeah. No, I would agree.
But anyway, sorry, Scott, didn't mean to hijack your tentacle.
Oh no, that's pretty much all I have to say. I think it'll be interesting once the Magic one comes out digitally, because that'll be a big competitor for Hearthstone. And
Wizards is coming out with that pretty soon, aren't they?
Yeah, it's currently in closed beta.
Yeah, real soon. Cool.
Yeah.
Nick, what's grabbing you?
What did I write down? Oh, Overwatch. Staying on the Blizzard hype train. Or the Blizzard train. Toot toot. I've been playing more Overwatch.
Mythos Busters episode 33, brought to you today by Blizzard.
Blizzard and Barricade. So I had a couple of good games of competitive, and so then I stayed. I was like, all right, I'll keep doing this, and so I was able to climb up. I dropped as low as the mid 1500s on my skill rating, and I was able to climb up to close to 1800 now. So I'm not sure when this season ends, but I'm gonna hopefully stick with it. I find that if I stay as Lucio on offense and Mercy on defense, that's generally good enough to I perform well enough as healer and support that even if we lose the match, I don't lose a whole lot in my skill rating. So I'm gonna stick with that. That's a lot of fun. I'm still loving Overwatch. I'm sad that Mercy is getting or has gotten that nerf, because
she needed it.
Sure.
She was so far and above all the other healers.
I don't I will agree that she was overpowered, but at the same time, it was nice to see her like consistent in matches, whereas before she just wasn't.
That's true. I guess at the end of the day, I'd rather see a healer be overpowered than like a fucking tracer or something.
Right, yeah. And then, okay, so yeah, we had our game weekend, our seasonal game weekend, just a couple, was it last weekend? Or was it 2 weekends ago already? Anyway, where a group of us get together.
It was just last.
Was it just last? Jesus. All right, anyway.
Yep, I know.
And a couple of fun things that came out of that was we played The Thing, Infection at Outpost 31, which I love that game. And we kind of ran into this issue where we realized that the game doesn't limit table talk in any degree. And the fact that...
And it's really hard for the things to play around.
Right. The fact that it doesn't makes it hard for certain strategies that the things would want to employ to be effective. And so our first game, we played it like the book says, where, table talk is encouraged, and we would be calling out what cards we're committing, and then that would then change how people who are accepting those cards are looking at other players. Anyway, what we did then for our next game was that we incorporated this house rule where all you can't say, I'm going to give you a flashlight. All you can say is, I can help with the mission, but I can't help with combat, or I can't help with the mission. All you can indicate is how much you can help. And that changed the game completely. Like, it's still, even, like, I was against limiting table talk, but even with that small limitation, it made the game so much more of an option for the infected to, like, suddenly feel like they had a chance. And that felt really good. Another board game that we played was one called Last Friday, which is a one versus many format board game that is basically Friday the 13th. And the one is the killer, the maniac, they call it in that game, and the other 1 to 5 players are the campers. And it has a campaign mode built into it where there's 4 different scenarios and you play them in order. But then you can also play standalones. And we played, our full campaign went 3 scenarios. And it was a lot of fun. It should have went 4.
Yes,
it should have went 4, but I don't know what Evan was thinking and why he just suddenly thought that I'm going to move out from protection and get killed. Anyway, it's a really, really interesting game. It's a lot of fun. It has persistent board state from one scenario to the next. I've played hidden movement games before. I played 1v many games before. This one actually felt pretty balanced for the most part. And I know 1v many is very hard. It's a very difficult format to balance. But this one felt like it did it. So if you have, I would argue that playing with less than 4 people, like I remember our 3-player game was fun, Sean, when you, myself, and Kip played it, but it wasn't nearly as fun as when we had 4 or more.
Agree.
And that's generally...
it gives the maniac a little bit more play, and there's more of the mechanics that get exercised when there's more people.
Yeah. So I would definitely say that if you have a group of 4, 5, 6 gamers, and for the most part you play cooperative games, give this one a try, because 1v many is one of my favorite formats, and this one does it well. And then the last thing that I'll talk about is a friend of ours did bring his Oculus VR to the gaming weekend, and I was kind of not against, but I was a little reluctant to get like VR going, because my whole thing with these weekends is like, let's play tabletop games, because I don't get to play those as often. But I found out that he had Super Hot VR.
Super Hot.
And I already love Super Hot, so I was like, okay, I'll try that. And I played that for 3 hours on Friday night, and then I didn't touch VR again, because I'm like, I got what I needed. And I know I'm late to the train on this because Super Hot's been out for a while, but Super Hot VR is amazing. It's an action game. It's like a movie action game.
Yeah, you're playing red light, green light with bullets.
Yep. So your enemies and the bullets and all that don't move unless you move. So you have the option to like look around and like consider your strategy, but then as soon as you start executing it, that's when they start shooting at you, and that's when you have to, and it's one hit kill. So you have to really like plan and move, and you have to be willing to like crouch way low and like fall on your ass and that sort of thing. And my legs were killing me for days after that. But it was a lot of fun.
I mean, I happily watched you play through that whole thing on Friday night, and then I even having watched you play through pretty much the entire thing, the next night I took it on, and it was still just as much fun.
Yeah.
God, I'm sure it was a novelty, and like actually owning that, I wouldn't end up playing it that often, but God, that was a really fun 2.5 hours to just sit down and throw knives at stick figures and feel like you're in the Matrix for a little bit.
And that's kind of how I am, like, where I'm at right now with VRs. Like, really, other than Resident Evil 7, how many full games do we have that are VR? And even with that case, like, wearing that headset for 2 hours, it hurt. And
yeah, it
like,
was straining.
You felt it. And so, like, ultimately, it's the same thing, like, with motion controls, when motion controls were all big and coming out. I'm going to approach gaming the way that I approach watching movies. I want to do it sitting comfortably on my couch. And just enjoying it that way. Now, these things are fun, and I'm sure that maybe eventually VR will get to a place where it's, you know, it could be a longer term thing, but I don't think it's ever going to oust just traditional video games, quote unquote. So,
I mean, we become just a generally really active society, and the couch fades into obscurity. But I don't see that happening.
No,
it is America.
The rest of entertainment is working away from that. So.
Well, I mean, the living room's kind of slowly dying in some respects, but yeah, I don't think the couch is ever going to go away.
Right. So that's me.
Well, for my part, I will echo Nick's recommendations on the games that we played. Last Friday was really fun. The VR was a good time. I also played a rock climbing simulation that I don't even have a thing for heights, but that thing was stressful. I sweated on those controllers really intensely.
Yeah, I would not have been able to do that. That would have been a straight up nope for me.
But since then, a long-awaited game that I'm very excited for came out, and that is the Shadow of the Colossus remaster for PS4. Shadow of the Colossus is easily in my top 3 games of all time. That is just such an amazingly executed, pure game that has such distinct personality and style. And they remastered it fully. They did the graphics from the ground up and remastered it for PS4. But what's really interesting is that all of the code for the game is still the original PS2 code. So the fact that it still works as a really functional game just shows how far ahead of its time the original Shadow of the Colossus was. Mm-hmm. And, I will fully admit, it's a little glitchy from time to time. It is the PS2 code. There are some, like, ledges you can get hung up on and whatnot. So I don't know that I would fully and vehemently recommend it to someone who hadn't played the original, but if you're a fan of the first Shadow of the Colossus, this remaster is so cool. No, sorry, go ahead, Nick.
I was just going to say that I will say that if you haven't played the original, do it with this remaster versus that PS3 version was made off of like a janky European version of the game where like the whole grip mechanic was out of whack. So I think that's probably why I didn't play the PS3 version all that much, but this one is actually made off of like the best version of Shadow of the Colossus is being remastered from the ground up. So definitely check this one out if you've ever been interested and just haven't bit the bullet.
Mm-hmm. And it's so pretty. They did the graphic remaster was so well done. I think the original kind of benefited from the fact that back when it came out, most everyone was playing on tube TVs. So it kind of had this really ethereal bloom lighting effect kind of laid over the entire thing that played really well when individual pixels weren't discernible. So like you said, Nick, the PS3 remaster was fun and it was cool to see it in a higher frame rate, but it lost a little bit of that graphical magic because all of a sudden that bloom effect kind of became like scattered white noise. And the graphical remaster just fixes all of that. They went a little bit more realistic, obviously, photorealistic with the style, but it's so pretty. Oh, God, I can't rave enough about it. I got it on Tuesday and already blasted through the 16 Colossi. I beat it on, like, Friday night. But there's lots of replayability, so I'm excited to dive back into that. And the only other thing I'd like to mention is I finally got around to seeing It a couple weeks back, and that's a good movie. I'm generally kind of a wimp and when it comes to horror stuff because it was just not something I was raised very well on. So when I enjoy a horror movie, it's generally because there's some other substance to it beyond just existing to scare you. And God, it was so well done. Have either of you seen it?
I have not seen the remake.
No.
Okay. The cool thing about it is the book is huge because the book simultaneously tells two timelines of these kids. So encountering the monster back in the 50s, and then the present day when the book is written in the 80s. And it tells the two storylines kind of concurrently as you progress, whereas the movie decided to focus strictly on the kids as kids, and then we're going to get a sequel that focuses on those kids in the current day when they're adults and encountering it again. But anyway, very well done. I wouldn't say it's probably not the scariest movie that's ever been made. If you've got a thing for clowns, it's going to get you. But it's way more kind of creepy than it is, outright scary. Right. But it's very well done. Skarsgård is terrifying as that clown, and just recommended. It's kind of gone away a little bit from how Lovecraftian King made the book, but it still feels pretty Lovecrafty.
Well, and if they follow it up with the adult version, then we might see more of that come out. So
right. So anyway, highly recommended if that's your thing. So guys, I think that wraps us up for episode 33. We'll see you guys next time on Mythos Busters.
Bye.